Now going back, man, you came in, you had real early success when you were 17 years old. You came into the game, people knew about you. You had, Hustle Hard, Bugatti. Let's go back there, man, and take us all the way back to how you were feeling. How was it in the height of your success, if you may?
It was beautiful. It was eye-opening. You know what I'm saying? I think there was a lot that I didn't have control over. I think there was a lot of great things that being a part of We the Best label in Cali, a lot of great things that we was able to accomplish. Put out a lot of great hits. So back then it taught me a lot. It taught me a whole lot. Being in that situation for 8 years, I learned so much. Coming into the game as a pup, not even knowing much anything about the business, anything like that. So it allowed me to really acquire certain skills that I didn't have before, So, and it was a fast living, so it taught me a lot fast, just being able to travel, see different cultures, see different people and stuff. So that point of success was great. But then on the other end of the spectrum, it was like I think I felt unfulfilled at some point as a person, as an artist. So, yeah.
Can you take us back? Because you're one of the artists that I could really appreciate because you keep a certain level of mystique about you. We had Rodney Jerkins on a couple hours ago, and I talked to him about his mystique. And you see too much nowadays. Everybody's on social media. Everybody wants to have this, that. Everyone wants to be out in front. And you never were one of those type of people that needed that. So can you take us back to who Antoine is and who he was growing up and how he became an artist?
Yeah. So the Antoine back then, bro, I played sports. So ball was always my thing. I played football. I was one of them kids who my mom supported me and people supported me. They knew that I would obviously go from playing Pop Warner to high school to college, and college to NFL. So that was always my goal, So for me, it was always that spirit of Antoine is a guy who's quiet, somewhat shy, but he, I've always been a listener. I've always been a sponge on the wall. So I've always been a man of less words. I never said much. I've always watched people do things. And so before I say something, I learn about it before I actually speak. So I've always been that type of person. Antoine is a guy who always wanted to provide for his family. You know what I'm saying? I was always an aggressive guy, animal, you know what I'm saying? On the field, off the field, man. I was just, I wanted more. I think I was just one of them kids who grew up in a small city, Deerfield. And it wasn't much opportunity. There were no superstars where we grew up. There were no famous people. There really wasn't much people to look up to besides, whether it was the dope boys or the homies who was playing sports and they were on their next move to go to a Division I college. So I came from a small city and I wanted everything. I wanted to take care of my family. That was my leading thing. I think what really pushed me to do everything that I did was stemming that I wanted a better life for myself and my family and the people around me.
Who were some of the rappers that you down south that you looked up to when you was inspiring to be one?
What's so crazy is that I listened to a little bit of down south. I really listened to a lot of up north stuff. I was so I was listening to like Cannabis, bro. I was listening to Big L. I was listening to like people who was really rapping. In terms of like Southern influences, Wayne. Wayne and the Hot Boys was like my biggest inspiration growing up, just because they represented the culture that we was on where we from. Riding the four-wheelers, putting the old school whips on big rims, 26s, 30s and stuff. So they really represented that culture. But musically, my mind was just open to a lot of R&B, just to a lot of music, just to, so that was really our gateway to be able to like push ourselves forward.
Do you think that stuff kind of happened too fast for you? Because you mentioned, having the success of the singles that you had, but then you mentioned being unfulfilled. So the common person will say, well, how could you be unfulfilled when you had so much success and so much notoriety and fame? What part about that journey was unfulfilling to you?
I think success is one end of the spectrum, and I think success is different to everybody. You can be successful in something and still feel unfulfilled, which means that you can be in a situation to where we gain success, but this thing doesn't fully represent me as a person, as a being, and what I'm trying to create for myself, right? So it's like when you implement it into a system that works, and notice, like we're talking about one system, I've grown to believe that there's thousands and thousands of systems that we can create, but the mind becomes narrow when you want to say, okay, this is one system and it works, and yes, this is what we're doing. Now, what happens when you implement it in this system and you want to create a new system? Then what you do? But nobody's paying attention to the other systems. Everybody's paying attention to this one system because we told that it works. So, and it does work, and then you become successful from it, which was amazing. But I think for me, it was different from having commercial success and having all of these great records, but not being able to sell out 4,000 or 5,000 stadium seating or whatever, you know. So that was the important thing. So it's kind of like flipping that thing around. So for me, that's mainly what it was about. For me, it was just like, you know what, I need to reach deeper so I can connect people on a heart-to-heart level, because that's what's going to fulfill me. Because I feel like if we can connect in that way, you know, that we're going to be connected and bonded together forever, as opposed to a record that was cool then and then now it's going down the pipeline type thing. So, yeah.
You know, you see a lot of artists, whether it be singing, rapping, whatever genre you're in, everyone in whatever genre aspires to be, you know what I mean, the best, aspires to be on the top, has to go through the music industry. And for those who are lucky enough to get in the music industry and do that, it's great. But you see a lot of artists don't really feel or look fulfilled or seem happy or things like that. It seems like they lose a sense of themselves throughout their journey. How were you able to stay grounded through your journey in the music industry, and how difficult was it to remain grounded?
It was, oh man, you know, it was difficult to stay grounded just because, you know, you got everything in your external world that's validating who you think you are, right? So it's like, you know, you're meeting people, I'm meeting women, I'm meeting artists, I'm meeting people, and they're telling me how great I am, how great this thing is, you know, and you start to really believe that, you know, you really take that in, you know. So that was one end of the spectrum. But mainly for me, man, I just, I don't know, I just always been a student, dog. Like, you know, that's really the thing about me, what allowed me to be humble, because I don't know nothing. That's what I believe. I believe we know everything, but then again, we know nothing. So I'm always remaining a student. And I think that's what keeps me humble, you know what I'm saying, at the end of the day.
Now, I was reading a Forbes article where you were talking about, you know, some of your early struggles and, you know, just living and going to the Gucci store and spending beyond your means. What lesson could you give to people and artists in general on how to manage your money? Because I'm sure you had to learn some hard lessons like we all have along the way. So what advice could you give someone?
Everything in moderation. I would think that, you know, I think be wise. You know, I think if anything, especially during the time of during the pandemic, in which we've all been taken away from our normal systems, to where we start to understand like these are super rainy days that you know we need to prepare for. So what I would tell the artists is mainly it's just to save and invest in things outside of your actual profession, whether that's music, invest in other things. So you don't have to necessarily depend on music for being that one source of income. That way music can always be fun. You can always be in a space of creativity, growing. That's what I've learned by being able to do other things outside of music and create and invest in other stuff, is that my music has become better, you know, because of that reason. And it's because it's not so much pressure every time I'm in the studio to say, oh man, I gotta make a hit, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. So I don't, you know, I wouldn't want artists to technically come from that place, but more from a place of just like, you know, I already am, you know what I'm saying? Like I already got it, I'm already straight. I can create from just a real place and not have to do this in terms of finances and stuff.
We were blessed enough to have a lot of great hip hop artists on this platform, and a lot of discussion that we have. One of the main topics we talk about is drug use and drug promotion in hip hop. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you've ever been one of those artists to really openly promote any drug abuse, any drug use, and you damn sure didn't in this last album. It was quite opposite. Why do you think it's so popular? I mean, we know the people who are just talking what they live, but there also seems to be a demographic of hip hop artists, whether it be forced on by the label or whatever, to promote it to the children. So what do you think about the drug promotion, and why do you feel it's so important to promote the opposite?
Man, that is a great point, bro. That is a great point. I talk about this type of stuff with my friends all the time, dog. So I think that shit is an issue, bro. You know what I'm saying? I think that, but in the same token, you know, I respect and I understand what people are. You know, I just question the fact of like, all right, what's the long-term goal, or what are we trying to tell the people long-term? I understand we all gonna make mistakes. We all gonna have our, you know, times where we teenagers or, you know, young adults and we gonna indulge in drugs or whatever. And I think if you do it, cool. You know, we've all done it, including myself, you know. So I think promoting it in the way that they've promoted it is it's just very interesting to me. And I don't think that type of thing pushes our people forward or pushes anybody forward. But you know, I don't agree with it, bro. Wholeheartedly, I really don't. I really don't agree with that, pushing that type of, because I think we could just talk about so much. There's so much to pull from, but to be able to talk about the drugs and how we use them, it's just going to inspire somebody else to want to use them in the same way because of my artist that I think is so cool and that I look up to when he dripping, he all it is. I'm going to do the same thing as him because I want to be cool and I want to be famous and I want to have girls, and this is just what everybody's doing. But I think it's damaging to the culture and to the young kids today.
Would you say it's an agenda? Because it seems like, you know, the labels kind of will push that type of music as opposed to, you know, a conscious song. They're looking for, you know, the most ratchetest song about people drinking lean, stealing somebody's girl. Would you say it's an agenda, or would you just say is art imitating life and people just giving their experiences?
Mm-hmm. I think it's an agenda. You ask me, I think it's always an agenda. You know, I think there's always an underlining, you know, because it's not a coincidence on why a lot of our young Black African-American artists and others so outside of our culture as well talk about the, you know, just the use of the drug usage. And I think that they know that maybe the people that's listening to it are not really conscious of it, or not like the people that, you know, it's meant for a certain demographic. It's meant for people who don't know themselves, who's looking for something outside of themselves to make themselves happy. You know, and I think in the world of the new generation, I think that's just where we are right now. It's just a lot of the young kids searching outside of themselves for, like, you know, for validation. And that looks like drugs, that looks like fashion, that looks like clothing, that looks like violence on the outside, you know. So my goal and my message has always been able to turn that energy and power in that, you know, same type of way you're going to, you know, exude it, you know, externally. I think turning that back internally has always been at least a part of my goal and a part of my messaging towards people.